The sun dipped below the horizon as I turned my key in the lock, a sense of relief washing over me. Home early for the first time in weeks, the thought of surprising Jenna with dinner felt like the perfect end to a dreary day of meetings. The house, usually buzzing with the clatter of dishes or the hum of her favorite playlist, lay unusually silent. Puzzled, I hung my coat and called out, "Jenna?" No answer. I shrugged off the silence, attributing it to perhaps Jenna taking a bath or indulging in her guilty pleasure of an afternoon nap. But as I neared the living room, a soft murmur of voices halted my steps. The sound was faint, barely a whisper, Jenna's voice, laced with a tension I couldn't place. Curiosity piqued, I paused by the door, my presence masked by the shadows of the dimly lit hallway. Jenna sat on the couch, phone pressed to her ear, her fingers nervously twisting a strand of hair. "I can't meet tonight," she whispered, her voice a mixture of disappointment and urgency. "My husband is home." The word struck like a blow, cold and hard. My heart thudded painfully against my ribs as the realization dawned on me, Jenna was leading a double life. Every whispered word from her lips twisted the knife deeper into my chest. Rooted to the spot, I strained to hear more, but she had fallen silent, listening. After a moment, she continued, "No, it's not that simple. We'll figure something out soon." I fought the urge to storm in, to confront her then and there. Instead, a cold, calculating calm settled over me. Jenna had betrayed me, and I would not let her deception go unanswered. As she hung up, sighing heavily and sinking back against the sofa, I stepped back into the shadows, my mind racing. That night, as Jenna cooked dinner humming softly, I watched her with a detached curiosity. Who was this woman I had married? How long had she worn this mask? The cheerful lilt in her voice as she chatted about her day stung bitterly, each word a reminder of her duplicity. Later, in the quiet of our bedroom, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Revenge, a dark, unwelcome guest, whispered in my ears. I turned over plans in my mind, each more elaborate than the last. Divorce was inevitable, but I wanted more. I wanted to dismantle the life she had so carefully curated, piece by piece. Jenna had made her choice, and now she would face the consequences. As dawn broke, casting pale light across our bed, I made my decision. Jenna would never see it coming. And by the time she realized what I had set in motion, it would be too late. Turning over, I watched her sleep, her face serene and oblivious. A bitter smile touched my lips. This was just the beginning. The morning light cast long shadows across the room as Jenna stirred beside me. Her gentle breathing, once a comforting rhythm, now felt like a taunt. I rose silently, the remnants of last night's revelations fueling a bitter resolve. Today, I would begin to pull at the threads of her secret life, unraveling it slowly, meticulously. I dressed quietly, my movements deliberate. Jenna's phone lay on the dresser, a silent beacon of her betrayal. I hesitated, a part of me still recoiling at the thought of invading her privacy. But the memory of her whispering, that stark declaration of infidelity, steeled my resolve. I picked up the phone. The device prompted for a passcode. I entered her birthday, and it unlocked. Guilt twinged in my chest, quickly smothered by a surge of vindication as I accessed her messages. The texts confirmed my worst fears. "Can't wait to see you again," read one, punctuated with a heart. The number was unfamiliar, not saved under a name, but it didn't matter. The intent was clear. Screenshots taken, I returned the phone just as Jenna awoke. "Morning," she murmured, stretching. Her smile faltered as she caught the coldness in my gaze. "Is everything okay?" "Fine," I replied curtly, turning away to hide the tremor in my voice. "I have to leave early today. Lots to do at the office." As I descended the stairs, each step felt heavier than the last. The day stretched before me, laden with possibilities of retribution. My first stop was the bank. I needed to understand our financial entanglements to prepare for the coming legal battles. The meeting with the banker was terse, factual. I outlined my need for separate accounts, citing vague personal reasons. He nodded, professionalism masking any curiosity. Next, I visited a lawyer, detailing my situation without revealing Jenna's identity. I want to ensure that when I file for divorce, the terms are favorable, I explained, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. The lawyer, a middle-aged woman with sharp eyes, nodded understandingly. We'll prepare everything. Just give the word when you're ready to proceed. Armed with legal advice and financial preparations, I felt a semblance of control returning. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. I needed Jenna to feel the sting of her actions, to understand the depth of my betrayal. I drove aimlessly for a while, wrestling with a plan that formed in the back of my mind. A call to Jenna's office under the guise of confirming dinner plans gave me the opening I needed. "Oh, Mr. Sullivan, Jenna left early today." Said something about a personal appointment, her coworker informed me, unwittingly tightening the noose. "Thank you," I said, my voice calm, belying the storm within. Personal appointment. The lie was almost laughable. That evening, as Jenna returned home, her face flushed with what I assumed was the thrill of her rendezvous, I was ready. The house was dark, the dinner table unset. Her smile faltered as she called out, "Honey?" "In here," I called from the living room, my voice steady. As she walked in, I faced her, my expression unreadable. "We need to talk." Jenna's eyes widened, and I knew she sensed the shift. "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice trembling. "It's about us," I began, the words heavy with the weight of my pain and the dark thrill of impending retribution. "It's about the truth." As I laid out the evidence, watching her face crumble with each screenshot, each detailed accusation, I felt a hollow victory. She sobbed, pleaded, but I was resolute. The game had just begun, and I was determined to see it through to its bitter end. The living room was shrouded in darkness, illuminated only by the harsh glow of the screen as I showed Jenna the irrefutable evidence of her betrayal. Her face, a mix of horror and disbelief, looked up from the images that sealed her fate. This isn't what it looks like," she stammered, her voice breaking. "Isn't it?" I asked, my tone icy as I scrolled through more messages, more promises made to someone else. "You tell me what it looks like." Jenna sank into the sofa, her hands covering her face. "I made a mistake," she whimpered. It was a moment of weakness. "Please?" I scoffed, the sound bitter. "A moment?" "This has been going on for months, Jenna. Months of lies." "How many moments is that?" She was silent, her body trembling. I stood up, the motion abrupt. "I've spoken to a lawyer," I declared, the words hanging heavy between us. "You want a divorce?" Her voice was small, scared. "Yes. And I will make sure that everyone knows why," I replied sternly. The threat was clear, and Jenna recoiled as if struck. "Please, don't do this. We can go to counseling. We can fix this," she pleaded, reaching out to me. I stepped back, out of her reach. "It's too late for that. You've made your choice." The rest of the evening passed in a blur of accusations and pleas. I was immovable, my resolve hardened by each tearful apology that seemed to mock the years we had spent together. The next day, I took more concrete steps. I visited the bank again, ensuring that Jenna's access to our joint accounts was restricted. It felt harsh, punitive, but necessary. I watched dispassionately as the bank manager typed the commands into his computer, segregating our finances effectively and irrevocably. I also stopped by Jenna's favorite boutique, where I knew she had charged thousands to our credit cards. A quiet word with the manager there ensured that Jenna's line of credit was discreetly closed. I was dismantling her world, piece by piece, the same way she had dismantled our marriage. In the days that followed, the atmosphere at home was cold, fraught with tension. Jenna moved like a ghost, her usual vibrant self muted and subdued. She tried to engage, to make amends, but I was a wall of ice, unyielding. Finally, she confronted me one evening as I was sorting through paperwork related to our impending separation. "Why are you doing this? Why not just leave quietly?" Jenna's voice was desperate, tinged with a pain that once might have touched me. Because you need to understand the consequences of your actions, I replied without looking up. You destroyed our marriage, Jenna. You don't get to walk away from that without losing something too. But I'm losing everything. Her voice cracked, and I finally looked up to see tears streaming down her face. You thought about that before, didn't you? When you decided to lie, to cheat? My voice was harsh, and I saw her flinch. I was wrong, I know that now. But destroying me won't fix what's broken, she sobbed, her whole body shaking. I paused, the severity of my actions hanging heavily in the air. A part of me, the part that had loved her, that still, despite everything, might love her, wanted to relent. But I quashed it. This was justice, I told myself. I'm sorry, Jenna. I can't do that. I can't just pretend none of this happened. She nodded slowly, resigned. I know. I wish things were different. So do I said, the words hollow as they echoed around the room, a stark reminder of the chasm between us. As she walked away, I turned back to the documents, my signature ready to finalize the fate of our fractured lives. The ink was cold, impersonal, just like the new world I was forging from the ashes of our past. The final days of our shared existence in the house dwindled down like the last grains of sand in an hourglass, inevitable and relentless. Jenna's presence became ghost-like, a shadow moving silently through rooms stripped of warmth. Each step I took was calculated, a strategic move in a game that only I seemed fully prepared to play. One chilly evening, as the wind howled against the windows, I made my final move. The divorce papers lay signed on the kitchen counter, a testament to the unraveling of a decade-long union. Jenna was upstairs, packing the last of her belongings, her sobs occasionally piercing the heavy silence that had settled between us. I paced the living room, waiting for the right moment. My phone buzzed, an alert from a private investigator I had hired weeks ago, confirming suspicions with cold, hard evidence. It wasn't just one affair, it was multiple. A pattern of deception so intricate and deep, it left little of the woman I thought I knew. The front door opened, and a figure stepped in. It was Mark, Jenna's brother, come to help her move. He paused, spotting me in the dim light. She's almost ready, he said, his voice neutral. Good, I replied, my tone matching his. There's something you both need to know before you leave. Mark frowned, confusion etching his features. What are you talking about? Instead of answering, I motioned for him to follow me to the dining room where I had laid out photographs, emails, and texts, evidence of Jenna's multiple betrayals. Mark's eyes widened as he absorbed the extent of his sister's duplicity. This? How long have you known? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. Long enough, I said coldly. Long enough to plan every detail of what comes next. Jenna descended the stairs, her suitcase thudding heavily with each step. She froze as she saw us standing over the spread of her secrets. What's going on? Mark turned to her, the betrayal in his eyes almost as potent as my own. Jenna, what is all this? He gestured to the evidence sprawled before him. She looked from him to me, her face pale, her eyes darting nervously. I can explain. No need, I cut her off sharply. Your actions speak for themselves. Turning to Mark, I handed him an envelope. I'm giving her nothing from the divorce. This is her share, I said, my voice laced with venom. The envelope was thin, containing just $1, a symbolic gesture of her worth to me now. Jenna's mouth fell open, her eyes brimming with tears. You can't do this to me. You can't leave me with nothing. I just did, I stated flatly. You should leave now. Mark, looking between the shattered pieces of his family, nodded slowly. He didn't say another word, just put a hand on Jenna's shoulder, guiding her out of the house. As the door closed behind them, the finality of the moment settled in. I stood alone, the echoes of their departure a stark reminder of the solitude that awaited me. But there was a sense of justice too, bitter and unyielding. The house was quiet, too quiet, as if it too held its breath in the wake of the storm. I walked to the window, watching as their car disappeared down the road. They were gone, out of my life forever, and the weight of everything that had transpired pressed down upon me with a vengeance. In that moment, I realized the cost of my ruthless pursuit of retribution. I had my revenge, yes, but at what price? The house felt not like a sanctuary, but a tomb. As the sun set, casting long shadows across the empty rooms, I understood the true nature of betrayal. It didn't just destroy those who deceive, but also those who sought vengeance. I had won, yet I had lost everything. I turned away from the window, the darkness outside mirroring the darkness within, and knew this was just the beginning of a new, lonelier chapter.